My name's Jackie Campbell, but I think I know nearly everybody here. And I'm Assistant Director for Housing in Neighbourhoods. We've got a number of people here spread out at the top table, but actually I think everybody up here is going to speak at some point or another, so I'll let them introduce themselves. We're going to start off with an update from Elise for the police, and then Paul's going to sort of follow that up with a bit of an update from Parkguard, our neighbourhood patrol service, because it fits really well together. So, Elise, do you want to start?
I think I virtually know everybody here. For anyone who doesn't, I'm Elise Eaton. I'm your Community Engagement Officer for this estate and also for Middlesex Street. I did mean to type this lovely thing out today, but there was a fire in Fleet Street, so I ended up stuck up there for a few hours. So I'll muddle my way through what I've written down. I looked at the crimes for the last 3 months, and there's been 25 crimes in total, which is quite a lot for the area, to be honest. However, virtually none of them are on the estates. I think I explained to you before something called Operation Servitor. We used to have the entry points and Ring of Steel. We don't really do that anymore. We have a proactive team who go out looking for criminal activity, and it's actually very, very successful. They've been doing stops on Middlesex Street, and from doing the stops down there, 2, 3, 4, 5 offences of both possessing and supplying drugs. That's just through looking at the behaviour of people, targeting vehicles rather than just randomly stopping them, and that's a really good result. So that's 5 drug dealers off the street, which was brilliant. Thefts, normal sort of thefts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 thefts, 1 from the post office, Tesco's, people's handbags from places like Ipsu when they're eating their lunch, and just they leave their handbags by the side and somebody helps themselves. 3 thefts from the gym, that's normally lockers or people leaving stuff while they're in the shower. 2 offences I would like to make you aware of. There has been, which is quite unusual, 2 sexual assaults in the area. 1 in Aldgate High Street and 1 in Goodman's Yard. Both attacks were on lone females. 1 was at midnight and 1 was at 2 o'clock in the morning. The descriptions for both offences was roughly the same. An Asian male aged between 20 and 30 years of age with short dark hair and casual clothing. So it's just worth, if any of you have got, young people or any young people here go out at that time of age, that time of night, then you may need to be aware of that. Obviously we will be trying to find that offender, but at the moment that offender is still at large, I'm afraid. There was also anything else of note? Let me have a look. That's about it for thefts. And there's been a couple of domestics. When you're looking after residential estates, I'm afraid there'll always be a few domestics that goes with the territory. Other things of note. Oh, anyone who's not aware, we run a scheme called the Pegasus scheme, and this is where if someone who's vulnerable for any reason, i.e. age, mobility or illness, we can put their details on our system. So if you have to telephone the police, we are aware of any needs you may have. So anyone who feels they are vulnerable or knows anyone who's vulnerable would like to be enrolled on that system, just let me know and I can come and register you on it. Lord Mayor's show, obviously, everyone knows that's on Saturday, I take it. Yeah, so there will be obviously major disruption to the roads in the area, but once a year, every year. And there is some leaflets here. You've probably got them in the library as well, I should imagine anyway.
Portsoken have got its own float. Yes, so very exciting.
And one more thing, look, we used to hold a community panel meeting. That was whereby we would ask you as residents to tell us any concerns or issues that you had. And the idea is, if there are any that we can target or fall within our, sometimes they're corporation issues or whatever, then we can deal with them. So I'm going to use this forum in future to do that. Instead of having lots of different meetings, I think it's easier just to deal with it while we're here. So has anyone got any particular concerns or issues I'd like to tell me about? Yes, Mr. Whitman.
We had a discussion about skateboarding because I saw the physical confrontation outside the cafe. But we're also still getting it between 9 and 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'd like the police to take more care and notice of it because they don't usually come out and call about it.
No, that's right.
And I think they need to take more notice of it.
Well, obviously,
In general, during the day as well, because they drive past it and they ignore it.
well, it is one of them. Although it's irritating, if you ring it into our control room, if there's a list, it's going to be
But
way.
if they're doing it at 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, that's a pedestrian thoroughfare and it's in the borough plan, it's supposed to be kept clear. And having to go around skateboarders is not safe, and I think they should take more notice of it.
Okay. I knew you was going to raise it, so I looked at the legislation tonight. It is a public bylaw, and it has to be on a public highway to be an offence. So if it's not on a public highway, there is no legislation.
They usually tee up on the highway, jump onto the pavement, and then jump onto the fixed stairs.
Yeah.
So part of it is on the highway.
Yeah, if it's on a highway, it can be dealt with. But there is also a new bit of legislation called the Public Spaces Protection Order, and that is something that the local authority can do, where if a problem is persistent and has a detrimental effect on public spaces, something can be done about it. But I should imagine the amount of evidence that you have to get that implemented would be
You mean
quite
like
a lot.
videos?
Well, no, not just videos. I mean the instances, the amount, and you have to prove. Although it may be, you might find it a nuisance, others may not. So it is something we can have a look at. I shall ask our PCSOs to have a look, but I can't guarantee to you that if you ring up the police at 2 or 3 in the morning, and it's a Thursday or Friday or Saturday night, that you probably will not get a response.
Could you email me that details about the legislation? So I'm gonna look
Yeah,
at this.
no problem. But also, it's difficult from our point of view. If we've got young people, and most often they are very polite. I've just moved one on before I came in here. There was not a young guy, he was about 20 odd. But we don't want to criminalise young people, so we'd rather, I don't know if there's another approach we can do, warning tickets, or perhaps there's something else we can look at, because I certainly don't want to break down a relationship with police and young people. So I'd rather look at some other way than...
The reason I made a fuss of it is because I'd rather they sorted out the step that they use to skateboard on, and then everybody's satisfied because they'll move somewhere else. It won't be such an attraction.
Yeah, sometimes the best idea is to design out problem.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what
If you
I'm
design
looking
out
to
the
get
problem,
done.
it goes away, but you know what I'm saying, where...
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the city is a safe place to be, so it does attract them to this area. They'd rather come here than some other parts of London because it is so safe and pleasant to be.
It is the sort of thing.
No, I
that-
know.
It is the sort of thing that the Neighbourhood Patrol Service certainly could keep an eye on, though. And that's the sort of, I know it's not low level to you, but low level general nuisance that
No,
they're
it's
there.
not low level.
Um,
Just wants
Could
I
you
want to look
speak
at.
to the So we'll have a word with them.
I'll send you the links to my emails, some videos you'll see yourself. I
At
can't
the time
remember
on
the
the
name.
At the time on the email.
The time on the video, yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Could you speak to the...
Jane, sorry,
Oh,
actually,
sorry,
there is a
sorry.
gentleman there with his hand up. Oh, it's
Well,
Henry,
sorry,
not a
Henry.
gentleman.
I've been called many worse than just 2 points, Elise, I'd like to raise with you. With the Pegasus system, recently this week a lot of BT users have had their lines cut for a week plus, and there's a number of vulnerable people that obviously haven't been able to get access. Can we make sure that those people are on there? I'm sure Greg will give you the numbers. As I say, it's been cut for last Tuesday, and it went on businesses, residents, and also, as I say, I'm not quite sure what it's called, the other call system. So if you can
The
put
live
those big systems on in place.
Yeah, no problem. I speak to the office. I said anyone who identifies a vulnerable person that they think should be on the list, just let me know, because we've just updated it all. There were some deletions, and obviously, if anyone wants to come on the system.
Yeah. The other point is as a ward members, we used to get a regular monthly information bulletin from John Zuber, I think was the last person, and he used to give us all the crime figures for the ward. We used to then try and look at see how we could solve whatever we could do. for some such reason in the last 3 months that's been cut, severed, I don't know why. I have asked, but I can't seem to get to the bottom of it.
There's been a huge turnover of staff in our department, particularly in supervisory staff. There's not a lot of continuity for a while. Hopefully that will settle down.
Well,
So it would be best probably if I did it.
well, whoever, because it's a system we had in place for
Yeah,
about 10 or 12 years,
yeah.
and all of a sudden it's just
Yeah,
stopped.
John Zuber left, and then we had some sergeants, and then some sergeants went. There was no continuity. So if you can send me the email addresses you want it sent to.
It's only the other members, and it just came to all of us. So
Can you
we-
send me the up-to-date, make sure I've got all
Yeah.
the correct emails, and then probably I'm the only continuity,
Yeah.
so
All
the
right.
best I do it, yeah.
You've been in here as long as me.
Yeah, so I can do it.
Okay, now it was Jen.
As far as the skateboarding is concerned, would it be worth speaking to the nearest skate park and asking if they could offer like a free pass? And then if you do find the kids going up and down on their skateboards, kind of like say, would you like a free pass to the local skate park one afternoon? And then if they like it, they might go away and they might enjoy the skate park more.
I don't even know. The nearest skate,
Is
most of
there
them are
one
free. Most of them are free.
Oh, are they? I didn't
Yeah,
realise
there's
that.
South Bank is the most
It's
common
probably the
place.
nearest.
But lots of the people don't, lots of the kids don't feel safe there. That's
My
right.
leg-
What, in the skate parks? I
Yeah,
didn't realise
yeah.
that. And I told Jackie about the charity people coming on the estate because we spoke about it, and I think Jackie's going to sort of like think it through. Or
Well, I
I don't
suggested
know,
that
maybe-
Paul can put something in the newsletter to remind people not to let people tailgate or let people into the estate for charity collections.
And it might be worth sending out a little police newsletter at the end of the year, just saying sort of like Merry Christmas from your local police. Over Christmas, don't forget, and then put whatever you think is important to you as the police. And I don't think it would cost very much, and it also makes people know that you're still alive.
Okay. Andrew, did you have a question?
I want the other residents to know about the ink cap again. I got planning to notice that they didn't have planning permission for their tables and chairs, so that they've actually had to put in a planning application now. And sometimes they remember to take the tables and chairs in over the weekend, sometimes they don't. And the major problem is the problem we've got in the whole of this area. You offer them the seats, drunk people are going to be taking them in the city, and it does cause a nuisance because you've got people partying there till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So I want the other residents to be aware that and I want planning to be told to please contact the residents so that we can put the objections in, instead of just putting it through and not notifying us. So like housing.
Well, we have no jurisdiction over
No, you
planning.
can put the notices in, we would like to be consulted whether they do it or not, is up to them.
It's actually all going
How
on.
that bounded?
What in
Yeah, they will advertise,
But
they will advertise.
somebody
planning.
needs to
Okay,
let the residents know about it.
okay.
Is there any other crime issues or antisocial behaviour issues?
Can I just ask Paul to do a quick update
Yeah.
then before you go, please, on the park guard neighbourhood
Yeah.
control service?
Let me just finish writing this.
Just
Sorry.
while Paul's writing then, I mean, we get a lot of information, the police get a lot of information from Park Guard. They're doing patrols every evening on the estate. They will, if you have issues, that's something that's going on at a different time, they will come out at a different time. How's everybody feeling about the service? Is it fairly unobtrusive? Are you noticing it? Or
As far as I'm concerned, it's very unobtrusive. And the only time I've noticed it is when they've been sitting in their vans near the entrance to the estate, presumably writing stuff up.
yeah, they
So-
write up.
But,
They
I mean, I would be interested to know what they do and how frequently, if they actually do a tour of the estate or whatever.
do twice a night.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Don't
If
do
they
every
do,
night or just the weekend?
No, they do every night.
so if they,
No, they don't do every night, just do weekends.
No, I've seen them on Tuesdays
They have been.
and Saturdays. I've seen
They've been
them
staggered
different.
on what, yeah, so it might not be every single night, but they
when
are.
they do
quite
a
frequent.
tour of the estate, do they actually provide Paul with any log of what they've
Yeah,
found?
And it's the most, and the police and the homelessness team, and we all get it is confidential, but we get a very, very detailed log of everyone they've spoken to, everything they've seen, so we see every single visit they make and what goes on. Yeah.
But one, it relates to another thing. I don't think there's enough information available to residents about what's happening on the estate. And there's an example whereby, if on the City London website there was a street estate section, there was a section there where perhaps anonymised reports were put out, at least we could be reassured that we know that things are actually going on, because otherwise it looks as though they come along and sit beside the entrance to the estate and actually don't physically go in. So it would be useful to...
I'll just, when we finish, add one thing there.
Yeah, so it's really two things really. I don't think there's enough available information about what's going on in the estate for residents, and I think the right place for that is not Facebook, but the right place is part of the City of London website, and this is one example of information that could be put on there on a regular basis.
One of the reasons you see them where you're seeing them a lot is because that is probably the most problematic place on the whole estate at the moment. Is the bin areas with the drug users and the rough sleepers. So if you're seeing them there a lot, they really are doing their job.
Yeah, we're not going to
I'm
be...
not complaining, I'm just saying that this is my observation, and it'd be useful to have some accessible record.
We can certainly put out, unfortunately the City of London website is it's not an easy vehicle for us to get information on. There's a whole machine. So we use Facebook because it's instant and we can put stuff out on it.
Yeah.
Which we can't on the
it's
website.
It's a timeline, so it's useful for things of immediate effect, but it's rubbish as a reference source of material.
Yes, no, I see that. We're not going to publish Parkland's reports. That's not going to happen.
Data protection.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, Roger. They're for professional use. They're for the use of the police, the homelessness team, the city's antisocial behaviour team, and the housing team. And it's very tightly controlled who gets that information. So, we will certainly produce a mid-year report which will summarise what they do and some of the ways in which we feel they're helping, and we will be consulting with residents. It's neither going to continue nor be taken away without residents getting the chance to comment on that. But we're not going to be posting up daily reports at all.
Yeah, it's again about this sitting business. The recycling area, when they clean everything else, they left that great big block of wood, which is attracting people to sit there, have chats, take their drugs, smoke joints, all sorts of stuff.
It's gone
for about
When did it go?
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
And I missed it.
It's comforting to know you occasionally miss something in.
The other one is travellodge.gov.
Yep, that was something that Elise checked out for us.
Yeah, I checked out. She's more fed up with it, the manager in there, than you are, assure me, because she's the one who has to clean it every day. There is a problem, it's broken, and there's a problem of getting a part, but believe me, she will be on their case, because the poor lady has to go out there with a mop and bucket every day.
Okay.
So,
it would have been nice to have been told that rather than have to go and ask them. So could you let her know that next time something happens, to let us know rather than us?
well, to be honest, she lets us know.
They didn't let you us know, so then it's your fault, not theirs.
That was going to be on the 6 weeks update afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that gate, sorry, the gate of the travel lodge over in the yard, isn't it? Very often the line is open tonight.
No, that's just what they're
That's
saying.
just what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be closed.
It's broken at the moment.
Again?
Yeah, just waiting for the spare parts, then they'll fix it.
All right.
Paul, is there anything else you want to say about Parkland?
Yes.
Go on then.
I think they're doing very well. I'm pleased to say a good 95% of the issues they bring to us we're already aware of. The odd thing, maybe a door closing in areas that we don't always get to or was working the previous time was there, they tell us about. But for your own information, they've liaised with the public, yourselves, a total of 43 times from the 1st of August to the 31st of October. They've liaised with local residents, other residents who are around the area 14 times. Littering sounds terrible, 22 times, but that could be anything on the floor, crisp packet, bit of tissue, but they mark every single thing they see. All in all, during the patrols, they've been 72 times, all's been in order, and they've visited 78 times. So there's been 6 kind of issues that have been there. There were accompanied the police once to a property, I believe, and then that was at the police request, and they were just there for extra backup if needs be. And they did disturb young lovers and asked them to move along.
Makes them popular.
But they accessed the area via an insecure fire, obviously now secure, so there's no young lovers on the estate, I'm glad to say. No, they're doing very well. They tell us things that we're already aware of that we either have got in motion or then we go, well, we can do that quickly because they're concerned as well. I think they're fantastic.
I think,
Yeah.
I mean, their value to us
Oh, it's
particularly is they're engaging with young people,
Yes.
and particularly, you know, any noise music, they engage with them, they're trying to make them aware of the new, people have talked at these meetings about young people not intending to cause nuisance but just doing it. Actually, that's one of the things they're trying to do, engage with them and let them get them to understand how it feels for other people to be listening to them and disturbed by them. That kind of thing. They're also doing a lot of work with the homelessness team to keep the homelessness, to identify things very quickly and work with them. So for us, and I think for the police, we're finding it a really, really good resource.
Yeah, I was pleased as the same thing. There's nothing that's going on. I was pleased. They're not finding things I don't know about either.
Yeah.
All the problems they're coming up with, I thought, yeah, we know. But as I said, lots of these problems can only be managed and not eradicated, and that's like the homeless,
Has that,
the drug
has that
users.
blue light down the back of the library helped?
No idea.
We put
We
blue
still
lights
had
there
a couple
because-
there.
Yeah, I know what you put there. Has it helped?
Oh, we haven't found anyone there recently.
Yeah, I think Parkguard found a couple
Yeah.
actually sleep
Yeah.
there.
Did
Yeah,
Recently.
this week Parkguard did find
But
one
they
down
were
there.
this week, so.
supposedly sleeping there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
So we didn't bring them in because we thought they were going to find lots and lots of things wrong, but residents were telling us that there was low-level nuisance, so this is our way of saying, well, okay, let's see how this pans out. Julian?
So I just pour it. When you said there's 43 or 48 liaisons with members of or residents or whatever.
Yep.
What do you actually mean? They met 48
They,
residents?
they,
actually
they
involved
say
in
liaison
dealings?
public stroke park user, but they're called park user for people within the local area. So it can be residents, they may have spoken to you, to yourself, anyone in the
That's
local
an
area.
incident or just because...
No, just hello, I'm this
No,
person.
sometimes they're engaging with people to say, are things okay? Do you feel
Yeah,
safe?
there's
Is
no
there
issues,
anything we
they're
need
just
to know
talking
about?
to you.
So they're engaging with people.
So 43 times in 3 months.
We're guessing that.
Well, no, there's 43 times here, there's 14 times other liaisons as well. They've liaised with young people, total of twice, they say.
Paul's pulled out a few
So-
figures from a
Oh,
long
I'm
list.
just trying to get an understanding of how many times they meet people on there.
They seem to have a
Approximately
low
60
profile
times
on
in a 7-8
Halloween.
visit, so.
Sorry?
On Halloween, they seem to have a low
Okay, we
profile.
can pull
There was
out-
a pack of lads
Okay.
running around the walkway
Yeah.
and they banged on Melissa's
Well,
door
obviously
and
they're
made a jar.
moving. They're moving between Golden Lane, Middlesex Street and Mansell
Yeah.
Street, so they can't be everywhere all at
At the
once.
same time.
We can certainly pull out the
Yeah.
report for Halloween and have a look.
I think that was the night they assisted the police. They came round for a reason. Let's see if I've got the details here. which I
but the
can't
thing is,
tell
it
you
is
the
quite
details.
difficult. You can walk around this estate and no one sees you. And no one sees you. You never see the police. But I can walk around this estate and be lucky sometimes if I see anyone.
Oh, good evening,
So
everyone.
it doesn't mean they're not there, and the reports are extensive that they're giving us, and I think they bridge that gap between us and sort of the more low-level stuff some of you are talking about, which really, in lots of forces, they have enforcement officers in other local authorities to deal with this sort of thing, but in the city we don't have a lot of antisocial behaviour to
No.
the extent that lots of
No.
other local authorities like Tower Hamlets have. So it's not a big necessity like in other
No.
areas, to be honest.
And we're trying
Yeah.
to keep it that way.
Yeah, and that's just like bridging that little gap in a way.
Okay. Right, Elise, thank you. And if you've got other things you need
I'll stay for a little bit longer.
Okay. Yeah.
But we are very grateful
Yeah.
for the work you're doing
Okay.
for us.
Thank
Louise.
you.
Even if we don't meet, you get the opportunity to say it, but I know that they are.
Okay.
You see me, so whatever.
I do, I saw you the other day.
Okay. I'm going to move us
Go
on
on,
because
very
I'm
good.
always being told we don't leave enough time at the end, so I'm going to move things on. We've got our colleagues from the recycling team here, and I know we've been told in the past you don't want other people coming into these meetings, but actually this is in response to people's requests for information and discussions about recycling. So I'll pass over to you and then Paul's going to talk about recycling.
Yes, I'll talk about recycling area itself and the move, and Karen will talk about.
All right, so Karen is.
Hi, So my name's Cameron Marks, I'm the recycling manager for the City of London, and I'm Isabel and I'm the recycling assistant for our City of London. So a couple of weeks ago, I think it was the 17th of October, we arranged an event here downstairs in the library called the Give and Take Day. Can I just have a quick show of hands from anyone who attended the Give and Take Day?
I didn't attend, but you very kindly took about 100 VHS cassettes from me.
Yes.
It was brilliant. I don't know what you've done.
And then
How do you recycle?
what we've done with those VHS videos is we've actually incorporated them into our float for the Ordinary Show this Saturday. So that's what's happened today.
That's a good idea.
So we had obviously it wasn't just your donation, we had lots more as well. So that's what happened to those. So we run regular give and take days in the city on a rotational basis on the estates. Obviously in the city we haven't got a civic community site, so if you have got bulky items, it's very difficult to dispose of them responsibly if you haven't got a vehicle. So that's why we organise the give and take days. As a follow-up to that, on the 29th of November, which is a Sunday, we're organising for the first time on this estate something called a restart party. So a restart party is an opportunity if you have any broken electrical items, small electrical items, not tumble dryers, dishwashers, that kind of stuff, any small portable electrical items, or say the speakers sound a bit fuzzy, or you have a laptop that doesn't charge properly, bring it along and our team of fixers can encourage you and support you to take the back off, have a look at what's going on, and try and help you work together to fix these electrical items. These are all in a bid to try and encourage you to try and repair your stuff before you throw it away and buy new. So it's all part of the reduce, reuse, recycle mantra that we're very much pushing at the moment. Does that sound of interest to people? Excellent. So it is free to attend. It's Sunday afternoon, 2 till 5, isn't it?
Are you going to send out a little leaflet?
Yeah, we'll be sending out a leaflet and Paul will be putting something on Facebook.
Yes, we will.
Yep. I don't think we'll make the newsletter, or will we?
No, it won't be in time. So we'll get flyers delivered to Facebook and noticeable.
So we will be distributing leaflets and posters, Facebook posts. It will also be on the corporate page of the website. As Jackie said, it is quite difficult to get stuff onto the website. It is very restrictive, shall we say, in the information you can put on and how it appears. But the information will be there next week, so please bear with us. We do ask that if you have something like a cracked screen, if you have got, say for instance, a cracked screen, by all means, if you can bring a replacement with, we can try and fix that. No guarantees we will be able to fix it, but certainly if it's already broken, not much to lose. So please do keep your eyes peeled for that.
Yeah, three things actually. There's an awful lot of plastic bags, the recycling bags, left outside people's flats because you just deliver too many of them. I've got 6 indoors. I do use them, but I don't use them for that rate. And I did write and suggest that you left them by the chutes for people to collect themselves instead of outside every single flat for people not to bother to take them in or to return them because they're not using. And it'd be less of a mess.
Okay.
And I think it'd save yourself a lot of time as well. You know, leave 3 out there when they've disappeared or down for 3, somebody can replace them instead of just sitting there. Now, they were delivered about 4 weeks ago. I went up last weekend, got to 10 on the 6th floor and stopped counting. It's ridiculous waste when you're recycling people. I would also like the recycling food bins, one left in every chute area on the tower because they're making a mess on the floor unnecessarily. If somebody wants to take it to start using it in their own flat, fine, but then put it back and replace it again. And on the tower, you can not only put the recycling bags, you can put the food bags as well, because there's plenty of room from the 4th floor upwards. There's absolutely no reason it can't be tried. It's not going to cost you anything. All you're doing is moving it from storage in the car park onto each floor.
I can those of you on that, we can get together. There is space there to use that, and it could be a good idea actually.
That's right, because they're sitting there doing nothing. Let's try something that might actually encourage people more, and you're saving waste. Because a lot of people just get indoors, throw straight down the bin, the plastic bags. Waste on everybody's side.
With the food waste, we do ask that residents do put out their food liners containing...
I'm not talking about the square, I'm talking about the tower.
Right, yeah. That should be the same for...
No, it goes into the chute area. It doesn't get left outside ground.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah.
So if you put a bin in the chute area, we're not staining our floor all the time.
Yeah, okay.
And it might encourage people to use it. And if I get in the mood to try it, I might steal the box and start using it again. You never know.
And the third thing, Andrew?
How many people in the square have got access to the car park by the number 2 key or any other method?
Everybody who has a...
Everybody. How did you get it?
I was given a
When was that?
40 years ago.
What, 19 of them?
Yeah, well, whenever they put the door on the...
Everybody is given keys when they move in, never.
Yeah. Because I had people from the second floor, from the square, complain to me that they haven't got the key.
They should complain to us and then we
Yeah,
can help
well,
them.
could you send it out in the newsletter, please, to the residents of the square to, instead of complaining, that they should ask us.
Or complain to the right people.
Yeah, it tends to come to us and we can sort that.
Okay.
I just like to support Andrew's first point, because I've now in my flat got 4 complete rows of recycling bags, and I was going to ask how I can recycle them.
If you don't want to bring them down to us,
I think we should have a method where I don't get them in the first place. And
That's right.
if, as Andrew said, they can be just left in the waste chute,
yeah, we can.
then I can take them as and when I
I think
need.
we should just tell everybody now, right now, put them in the chute and other people
Yeah,
want them.
I can put the ones I've got in the chute area on my floor.
Thank you.
That seems
Karen's got that,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's all that I'm saying to you.
Okay.
There are some people who won't be able to collect them for themselves, and it might be worth identifying who those people are, thinking of, say, housebound and things like that. Obviously, the idea is a good idea, but there will be some...
If they're housebound, then they've got somebody taking the bag out, so they can go and collect it from the chute.
Okay,
Let's let Paul and
Yeah,
Karen
Paul,
talk
yeah,
about it, but thank you for the feedback.
As far as the compost bags are concerned, when you have them reprinted, could you include cut flowers as one of the options for putting in it? Because at the moment, I don't think cut flowers is included, and they will compost down, or...
We do discourage garden waste from going in. A small amount of cut flowers is fine, but if you've got a balcony and you've got lots of green waste, then that's, in large quantities, that's not something how our food waste is treated. Garden waste cannot be composted down with the food waste. It all depends on how food waste is composted and temperatures, how long it's held out before it composts down. So that's the reason why we can't contain too much, why we can't collect too much garden waste.
Do you mean garden waste, or do you mean sort of like cut flowers?
Well,
I mean something like tulip stems.
For something like tulip stems, absolutely fine. But if you've got say in the square, you've got lots of garden boxes, and too much of that wouldn't be appropriate. But if you've got
I mean things like
flowers,
tulip stems, things like that.
yeah, that should be in small quantities. That's fine.
You should encourage more use of the green boxes, because a lot of people don't use them. And I asked the recycling man when he goes around, what are people leaving out? And not many people are leaving out the little green box.
Why do you think that is? From a residential perspective, what can we do to encourage residents to use the food waste service? We take your point about the caddy.
Yeah, but part of the problem is leakage. The bags are always going to leak. Now, I've seen other councils have got sealed green boxes that don't leak. Because that's the reason I got rid of mine, because you have something in the bag, you don't think it's wet, but when you've got a dozen lots of coffee grinds, it is wet, and it comes over the top. And it's ridiculous.
Use a double bag.
No, the bag's always leaking. But it's the box shouldn't be leaking, because other council boxes are complete and without holes in them. Just, you need to think of something better.
We provide the vented caddies because it enables air to circulate within
know
it, so it causes less smells. If it does leak, you can line your caddy with newspaper.
The sensible thing to have done was give a higher ring before you started doing the holes. That's design fault, not your fault.
Yeah, I'm afraid that, like you say, that's very much a design fault. We have got obviously
But that's the reason I
huge
got rid of
quantity
mine.
of them. So
Yeah.
we're not
So
going
you're
to
not
The
gonna change.
answer a lot of people give to your question is that they don't want something like that in their kitchen. If I've said to them, why don't you use it? Older people say, oh, I don't want a bag in the corner of my kitchen that's got like potato peelings in and things like that. I've said to them, you could actually put the little box outside and then just go and put your peelings in. Doesn't seem to cut much harm.
Well, that's why it might help in the if you've got it in the shoot area. You know, you'll fill it up once a day and dump it in the shoot area once a day, and people might accept that better instead of leaving it overnight.
I'll get together with you.
And until it actually starts working, you don't need to buy a bigger box because you don't know if it works yet or not.
Are you going to send out a little leaflet before Christmas, sort of like, you know, don't forget to recycle the
Yep.
wrapping paper? That
That's, Izzy's going to be doing a Christmas recycling campaign, so leaflets will be coming around pages on the website. So do keep your eyes peeled for the Christmas information leaflet. No pressure, is it? It's a Christmas promotional recycling campaign and a restart party on the 29th of November. Okay, does that sound of interest to people, the restart party? I say party, it's just people coming along to fix things, but that's what it's called.
Can you bring along a mobile phone if you dropped in a bucket of water?
Try. If it's broken, there's no harm, nothing lost.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I don't know if it's been raised, so I was a little late, excuse me. My apologies. You know the signs that you've put on the actual chute? Or they're getting very tatty?
Yeah.
We're in the process of getting
Oh,
more
right. You need something a bit heavier that we can wipe over ourselves if you want to.
I am glad that the recycling hoppers have been moved inside, because I came down one morning they were moved, and I actually saw people getting out of them.
Well, that's a good link, Jen, thank you. Let's, if that's all, thank you so much. If you need yeah, recycling area.
Okay, as you know, these bins have been moved inside to the car park, and thank you very much to the private members club for doing that. It didn't cost us anything, which is very helpful.
Saying I missed what who did it?
The private members club, the workroom they have over there, actually moved everything in for us, and I think it looks better there. We're in the process of moving the signage, so that you know exactly where it is, as opposed to just an empty space there. And we're looking to, myself and the estate team, to get in a hatched out area, so no cars will go there, with some locking posts put in place, so no pedestrians, only pedestrians can go there, and no actual vehicles can drive through anymore. So that's all in process, and that'll be done hopefully shortly. But I think it's a good place where it is now. It looks nice and neat, and
Can it be, the floor be tiled so it can be bucket of water when they move the bins to keep it clean and not smelly?
So we could look to...
Because that was a problem with it.
Actually
where
make
it
it a
was.
proper tile. I can look to get quotes for that and see if it's a viable
Yeah.
option.
Yeah, find out what it's cost. I know. You've forgotten. I do that all the time. Let's let Julia, because he
I
has
just
something
wonder
to
about
say
it
in time.
moves backwards. So when are they going to bring the gate forward?
That's a process that we are looking at in conjunction with the project that we have, which Lady's going to talk about a little bit later. Don't have a time scale for that, but it's a possibility, stroke probability.
So I think you said you also that that space, a commercial property, want to use that space where the recycling bins were?
Yes, it's an option that we're currently looking at to block off the space and a commercial property use it and get some income for that as well. So it's a dead space.
But as far as you're concerned, the gate is still coming
Yeah,
forward.
and it will stop that one resident on the estate still dumping a black bag there. We can't catch them. We can't identify them on CCTV. I've got a good up, I'm not sure who it is.
You've remembered.
Tell me, why is the cage got a lock on it? People want to put things into the cage. They leave it all outside. It was terrible the other day. I emptied my shed.
Ready for a bulk refuse cage?
Pardon?
The bulk refuse cage?
Yeah.
Because people were going in there in the middle of the night and using it as a hidey hole,
Oh,
hiding behind bathtubs and things that people were dumping in
Sorry,
there.
I can't hear.
people were getting in there at different times of day and night and hiding in there and sleeping in there. So if you've got any bulk items, leave it outside and the estate team will move it inside.
Well, I left the stuff outside and somebody helped themselves to whatever was in the boxes. I can't believe it.
Recycling. So, yeah.
A lot of people think
People might
that's
use
an
it with it.
advantage, Ivan. Yeah, where I live, if you put something
Put something
outside,
outside,
even
it
if you
goes.
don't need to, it's gone. Yeah.
In fact, when you moved in, someone nicked something that you just put down by the side and left it for a minute, didn't they? So,
Nick something from my own. Yeah.
yeah. So that was urban recycling, actually. So yeah.
In Germany, they have an afternoon where people are invited to put things outside their house, and if you see it on that afternoon, you want 10 euros.
Yeah, it's a good idea. That's that.
Can I digress completely? We had money from the sheds.
Yes.
What's happened to it?
We have funds for that this year, and I'm going to be sending letters out to everybody, giving you a few options and asking for your views and what you'd like to spend on.
But dear sir, we did that some time ago.
And
We did
Nothing's
that.
been done.
No, we did that end of last
yeah.
It must
year.
be.
This time
Yeah,
last year,
happens
and
every
and
year.
money was allocated to the
But
gardening club for equipment on the gardens, on the podium. But we've got another fund for this year. I don't know how much that is at the moment in time. I need to check with our accounts team. But I'll let you know how much the fund
At
is.
one time there was a considerable amount of money, nearly
Well, they don't account for it, so we
And
don't
that-
know how much it is.
About £8,000.
Yeah, there was about that amount, and that generally went on the gardening club.
Yeah, but you didn't
No,
tell
the
us
time
yet.
For the
before it
podium,
went
for the equipment they bought
Okay.
there and the composting.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, before anybody else interrupts, is that, not you, that this happens every year.
Yeah.
So every year our accountants say, oh well, 20% of the income is this, that goes into your budget, then Paul sends out a letter or notice saying, please let us have ideas. Sometimes, most estates have ideas, not all do. So if nobody comes up with any ideas, either the money's held over to the next year, so we can save it for a couple of years and you can have something bigger another year,
Yeah.
or if nobody has any ideas, then the estate staff put something forward. But so what Paul is saying is last year's money was spent on various things that the gardening club put forward, and we're about, and Andrew said nobody knew that. So,
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
we've got a
generally
notice.
that
We've
then
got a
goes out
notice.
in the newsletter. But
We've got a notice sent out. It was spent on the garden club. That's not an account.
well, no, it's not, Andrew. But,
But that's
it's
what we get.
okay.
And I've
so-
made a complaint previously about the previous year. We were told that an amount was spent on the
Okay.
sheds and we didn't get an account. So it's not the first time I've made this complaint.
Okay, so
So-
so what we do on the estate, on this, and so Paul can
Yep.
put a bit more detail in this time and say,
How
you know,
much?
it was spent on this, this, and this, and so there's nothing to hide. It just no, so he can just put a bit more detail in.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to spend the recycling area to spruce that up with your tiles and hatched areas and little barriers around, spend on that.
Well, it's an idea, isn't it?
It's an idea,
It's
that's
a
right.
very good
Okay.
idea.
Jane.
It's one quick thing that actually covers recycling of the estate. The shops actually generate an awful lot of cardboard and they don't seem to recycle it, and it seems such a shame because it's such a valuable resource. Can you persuade the shops to recycle all of the cardboard that they chuck away?
Is it your turn?
No, the shops actually comes under commercial waste, and actually as the City of London no longer has a direct commercial waste service, so we have no direct power as to how all the shops do or don't dispose of their waste. However, we do run a scheme called the Clean City of All scheme, which encourages businesses to adopt sustainable waste management practices. So we do have that scheme, but in terms of, obviously we can encourage businesses to join up to the scheme, but we can't actually force them.
Does it cost them to recycle their cardboard, or is it free for them?
It very much depends on who their contractor is.
There is a cost to it. There's a cost for general waste. I understand it's a less cost for recycling waste. So myself and Bob Jackson are currently looking at what's viable for the shops, and if everybody wants to sign up to it, because the situation we have, there's leases for the shops. So every shop pays the same amount of lease for the refuse. Now you'll get one shop which probably uses 2 bins a week.
Service charge.
Service charges, yes. And one shop which maybe uses 1 bag a week. They still pay the same amount. So we're looking at what is viable and what's fair and what's manageable. It's a different option, which I won't say at the moment in time because the shopkeeper's in the room. And seeing if it's possible really to make savings for everybody, because we don't really take an income from that. They give us the money, we pay Amy. And it's quite a bit of money that you pay out each week for it for the shopkeepers. And there's going to be a cheaper, more viable way of doing it, especially for shopkeepers flatten the cardboard boxes, which they tend to have an inability to do at the moment. Not you, Henry, obviously, not me, I'm a shopkeeper, so.
Can I just
But you
make
know
a
the ones I
point on Clean City Awards? I went in it for possibly 15 years. I got an award and I won accreditation, whatever it was. And I came out of it until they started charging the businesses. To me, it's an unfair thing. Why should you, if you're actually conforming and actually doing these things, why should you then be charged to go into the Clean City rules?
Like all local authorities, the City of London needs to identify savings. Now, the Clean City Rules scheme is actually funded by the City of London.
Andrew, just let somebody ask the question.
It's a shopkeeper asking a question about cost to him. I don't think it should be done in a residential meeting.
Well,
who brought up the resident?
The question was asked.
Cost to shops.
Actually, the original question was about the cardboard. Let's get the answer and then we'll move on.
Yes, so Clean City Rules scheme is fundable, was traditionally funded by the City of London. Like all local authorities need to make savings. The Clean City Rules scheme isn't cheap to run, so the Clean City Rules scheme was identified as a way of the city to make savings, and actually businesses do value the scheme, and so it's a way of making it self-funding.
Okay, I won't press you any further.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for that update on the recycling.
Yes, that will be
Yes,
a little bit
later. Oh, sorry, right. So we have Leila here. So we had a very long and really detailed update on the ramps removal and the landscaping project at the last meeting. So Leila's got a shorter update this time, but it's just to bring you up to date with what's been happening since the last meeting. So, Leila.
Yeah, right. So I'm just trying to find the full screen.
Any idea where the music's coming from?
Gone now, too late.
Okay.
Evening, so there are some familiar faces. Most of you are used to have Victor Calister coming along to the meetings, but unfortunately he's left the city, for some of you who didn't know. So I brought along another colleague of mine, Clarice Tavian, who is the programme lead on Middlesex Street Estate improvements. So be kind to me today, so I'm not, as experienced as Victor. So for those who don't know me, I'm Leila, I'm the project manager for the re-sign of the Arsenal Street space. And just always good to look back at how awful it was with those ramps and how it is now. Moving on quickly. And just to recap on the process we followed so far, because we tend to meet residents at certain workshops and then a different lot of residents at other workshops and then other residents that are there consistently. I can see some of you here tonight. So after the demolition of the ramp, the idea was to do the design and demolition of the ramp at separate times just to make sure that residents could visualise the space a little bit better. And then back in May, Victor had a meeting with some of you, 2 workshops to look at what current issues there are and how the new design could address those issues, and also what were the aspirations of residents for the new space. From there on, we had a designer working up design options, and we had another workshop that some of you as well attended, and it was very well attended. Lots of passionate debates, able to contain everybody, but we got all that captured in those documents, which were then circulated to you by email. And then, based on those 2 options, we're now at the stage here where we've identified a preferred design. And where we are now is we are going to start going into the details of that final design. That will be informed by technical studies that we do alongside that, mostly around the last section of the ramp that's there and it's covering all of us in a bit of an eyesore. And then that final option will be submitted to a statewide public consultation towards the end of November. So Paul will have the dates in the next newsletter, and we always send letters out as well. So you'll be all aware of that public consultation, even if you haven't attended the workshops. So you can fire away. Go ahead.
Thank you. I enjoyed the feedback from the meetings. I didn't get a lot of time to read it because it was only received today. And as far as I can see, the major difference between the two workshops was one lot wanted a signed cyclist to dismount and one lot didn't. Which I thought was quite fun.
Yes, well that is our challenge.
Yes, that's right.
So
the serious point I wanted to make was, who moved the slope in White Kennet Street? Was that part of you on the design team? Because we were talking to you about people parking on the pavement.
No, we have no authority at the moment to do any works. So it's probably our transport colleagues, and I will have to have a chat with them.
Because they moved it from a place where the slope never had parking in front of it, because it was on a jut out and it was on a corner, so cars would never park there, to a place right bang in the middle where everybody wants to park.
Right.
And by moving it, they haven't cured the problem of people driving up the slope on the Kennet Street, so they really should have spoken to somebody else before they spent 3 days blocking the road and a fortune doing it.
Okay.
And maybe they should have spoken to the local residents before they decided to do something like that.
Okay. Do you know when this happened roughly?
Yeah, I got the video of it. It was last week.
I'm surprised you didn't send me that video.
I didn't want to moan it yet. It wasn't your fault. I knew it wasn't your fault, so I was going to I was going to be polite to you when it came to this.
Please send it, and we'll identify who in our department. There is
It's a Riley contracted video.
Oh yeah, they do the work, but the decision of doing that, we need to find out.
Because I find that was a very odd thing to have
There
done
must be
at this
some
time.
rationale though. There must be a reason why they moved it, and we need to look into it.
And they also they've done tarmac on a disabled slope, which is not what disabled slopes are supposed to do.
Okay. Well, we tend to try and follow access policies, but we'll look into it outside this meeting, and I've got your email. Any other questions at this point?
Oh, are you going to carry on?
Yes.
Okay, carry on.
But please interrupt. So where we are now, we have identified a preferred design, and where we're moving towards now is finalising that design, informing by studies, mostly around the ramp, as I said, estate-wide consultation. Everybody will have a say as to whether or not they're happy. They'll tell us what we could improve, and then we finalise that and produce final drawings for construction. That final drawing is also, and that final decision is also made by members as well, so we have to go to committee. Yeah. Just to touch on what Andrew said, actually, funny enough, I was very lucky that both groups came back with similar views on the design. So there are details on maybe cycling and this and that, but the general view was what people want. Most people that attended the resident workshop anyway, they want greenery, 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 greenery. That was the theme throughout. A lot of greenery to offset the grey, along the facades, along the ramp. And so what I've tried to capture in a very simplistic manner here is all the feedback we've gathered, whether it was in May or whether it was at the last workshop. And these are just keywords that have now informed the finalisation of this design. So lots of greenery, evergreens, and so it's green all year round, some scented flowers, some coloured flowers as well. Now, planting design, we can talk in detail, we can work with the association, the gardening club, and involve them as well. Planting goes at the end, so I know some people are quite keen to suggest some species of planting, but we're not quite there yet. And we will give other opportunities for people to come in and engage in the planting design. But that is the main theme of the design, is greenery. Some people like the mosaics, which they just wanted them toned down and just tiny touches of them. So we have kept the mosaics in. And the main thing that came out as well was to address all in red are the issues that you all raised at some point in the workshop. So visibility and signage, everybody was in agreement that the Petticoat Tower entrance should be the focus and the focal point of the design. So now all the design revolves around the entrance of the Petticoat Tower. Lighting is the same, it's all around create a safer feeling around the area, but people didn't want it to be utilitarian. They want people to feel that they're entering a residential area. And so it's all around trying to create a space that's no longer a street, but it's a square, and it has more a sense of place where people live, but also where people go to the library and the community centre. In terms of materials and types of planters, everybody was in agreement. They wanted more curvy lines, so it didn't feel like a motorway for cyclists to go from Gravel Lane to Harrow Place. Everybody was in agreement that it should be warm tones and not grey type colours, so no steel, no darker colours, but more warm stones. So suggestions like Corten, which is a type of steel, but rustic coloured steel were proposed. So that's where we are now. So we took all that on board, and correct me, some of you were there if I missed something, but this was the theme that we all agreed. So although there were minor differences, we actually all agreed on the main principles of the design we're working with. So that's the before, that's the angle from Harrow Place. And this was the first option. Some of you didn't attend the workshop, so this was the very first option we worked with. And what I highlighted in red was what people said they wanted to focus on. So they said, actually, we don't want the community centre to be the focal point, so there's no need for a massive signage to the community centre. So we might have a finger post at that end, but we just dropped this. And so they said, here, the motorway for cyclists. So we said, okay, we'll just put curvy lines there. We agreed that the canopy should be included in the design of the space. And so we've included it in the design, and we're hoping, but it needs to be confirmed, that we will have enough budget to fund this canopy. But it will form part, now it being the focal point, it will form part of the design.
Can I ask a quick question? If it's not part of the funding, what happened to the old canopy that was removed to do the ramp removal, and why can't that be returned, or is it being sold for scrap or something?
No, I haven't said it's not part of the funding,
But if it is,
but the scope of it, whatever happened, we will put something.
there will be something.
But,
okay. Yeah, sorry.
but the extent of it, because there were some grand suggestions of, you know, New York style entrances and all that. So we'll have to, what I mean is we'll have to design to budget.
Yeah.
But we will have some shelter.
The original canopy wouldn't be big enough now, because we had the wall as cover.
No, I agree, but if we could have nothing, that'd be unfortunate.
There will be something, for sure.
So I just say that,
Yes.
you said the canopy, because I think the main focus was that we should have the name Petticoat Tower.
Yes, remember this was the first option, and the design of the canopy is not designed yet, we're still working on the design, but what did come out is we should have the name of the canopy, of the tower on the canopy. So this was the old version, and the new version is pretty much very simple as well, because we haven't got the detailed design of that entrance.
Then you could remove big signs of Petticoat
Yeah,
Tower,
so
right?
this is, but again, Andrew interrupt me right at this point. Yes, this will go, that's why I've highlighted it. This will go. Okay, bear with me now. Oh, okay. So that's following all this feedback. So it's gone. This sign has gone. We put one on top of here, and just don't go all crazy. No, this is an ugly canopy. This is just to give you an idea that one, it will be bigger. Roughly gives you an idea of the size that it will be, or might be. But we need to work on the detail of that. And those details will be included when we go to the estate-wide consultation, public consultation. But here we go, we've got curvy lines there, we've got different layers of planting, different colours of planting. All these walls.
Excuse me interrupting.
Sorry.
If I'm not mistaken, the wall covering on the right hand side where the the
Sorry, there?
panels going down,
Sorry.
it suggested
There.
it was suggested to put evergreen shrubs along the wall.
Sorry, what are you talking about? I'm getting
To cover the walls.
There? There.
Wall.
Evergreen
That's
shrub.
Here.
There was to be evergreen.
Can you go across?
Yeah, well, as
They
you
were
said,
to-
Leila said, that's the last thing we're going to think about.
Yeah.
And
This is just a visual thing of
you do have, I mean, it just looks a little bit messy and busy here, but there is supposed to be some evergreen shrub in here because obviously it's not spring all year round. So we always like to show flowers in bloom. But if you look closely, you do have some green shrubs in between the flowers. They're not vertical planting, but they are included in the planting, evergreen, so that it, obviously in autumn and winter, it's not going to look all empty. It will have some shrubs, evergreen shrubs in there. They're in between the flowers there.
Is there still some mosaic in the picture?
So there is still some mosaics because there were some views that it should still be in here.
That's what I saw.
And
Is that
it's-
bit mosaic?
It's toned down and it's not in panels, so it could be in panels in between main points, or it could be a whole. The whole length?
Could
be nice.
Discussed in final workshop, I would have thought.
Pardon?
In placement with something for the one.
Yeah, exactly. That's the detail. That's the detail that we work out later. But it's just to give you a feel, so you don't have the bright orange, you know, South American style mosaics anymore, which I love, but never mind. We have this.
Sorry, Leila.
Yes.
Well, the general opinion was actually, because I attended both of these, was that we didn't really want mosaics. That was the overriding thought, that they wanted something plain but with planting rather than mosaics.
Yes, that's why it's mostly planting everywhere, but there were some people that felt we could introduce some mosaics. It doesn't have to be all along, it could be 3 panels on here,
I thought that'd be
very subtle.
Just interesting. The other thing.
But hang on, just so that I can respond to Julian, but at the public estate public consultation, if most people, 80% of people say they don't want mosaic, that will just go. So this is not final, this is in progress, in process.
You got more photographs from more angles?
Yes, if I carry on, yes.
Oh, wait.
So what we were advised as well was to try and cover these ugly pipes as well, so to have the vertical planting here instead of the mosaics, and vertical planting here as well to grow over the concrete structure there. And to keep it simple on the eastern facade as well, and maybe highlight the planting with some uplighters. You'll notice as well we've integrated some low-level lighting, so that's something everybody was in agreement as well, to have some low-level lighting in addition to the usual highway lighting that we have here. And any other questions on this one? Yes?
Right. First comment, really. I think the consultation process has been very good, and I think my congratulations on doing it well, and I think it will continue to go well. My question, if you look at the bottom of that illustration, where the roadway was, what do you call that sort of stuff? Is that blocks?
Granite
Cobbles?
Yeah, granite sets.
Okay, granite sets, okay. My question is about granite sets and utility companies, because at the moment I'm looking out of my 18th floor window onto Wentworth Street,
right.
and Tower Hamlets is busily taking out all the concrete sets of the street and replacing the tarmac, basically because utility companies, well I don't know what the real reason is, but I surmise it's because utilities come around, they do their job, and rather than replacing the sets, they just put some tarmac.
Yes, that's true. That is
what
a big issue.
what will the situation be here?
The difference is the way we manage that at the city. Highways colleagues, not us, our highways colleagues, they make sure that they don't leave the place with, and if it could be tarmac for 3 weeks or a month because they can't source the right granite, but they cannot.
If there's a whole set of steps there in the first place, they presumably just take them up, do what they need to do, and then they don't need to order any new sets, do they? They can put them back.
No, they have to We force them.
Sorry?
We force them, they have to. We always make sure.
No, you're saying
You just reuse
reuse.
them.
The utility company,
Oh yeah,
it's
no,
an
they
obligation for the...
they have to. Yeah, there's an obligation for them to leave the
No, but you're right, they don't have to order new sets, normally they can use...
reuse the
Yeah.
existing ones when they dig them
Yeah.
up.
What I'm saying is, I mean, why do tar hammers have the problem and we're not going to have
Because
the
they
problem?
weren't standard tiles, they were supposed to emulate
Well, it's the same,
cogs.
but in principle, I mean, if there was a road surface there at the beginning, you take out the steps.
Yeah, but
do
it
your
wasn't
job, and
standard
you've still got the
because it was
steps
Ken
to fit back
Livingston.
in.
The same as he did down Brim Lane. He put in funny tiles, spent £150,000 on putting, and never had an agreement to be replaced.
I think it's because we've had that issue before and we've learned from experience.
Yeah.
And the way the city operates now is every time one section of the highways team receives a request to dig up the road, an engineer is then allocated to that to go and check that the works are done properly and that when they leave it's left to an adequate standard.
Okay, so you can reassure us that the surface will be replaced at the end of the works,
Yes.
whenever that is, as it was
Yes.
before.
Now, in
Fine.
terms of making
That's fine.
sure that we have
Yeah.
the granite sets in stock, we use standard materials and they're used everywhere else in the city. So we're not going to start putting some red granite in there or some
Yeah,
funky colours. It will be standard materials purely for that maintenance reason. And remember, this is already highways, this bit there. So it's down to the city to maintain it as highway and to that standard. Now, I just wanted to caveat this granite there. That's what we aspire to do, but it's all dependent on whether we have the right depth underneath or not. Because to be able to put granite sets, you have to have a certain depth.
Yeah, well, it's already 3 inches lower than, you're increasing the surface by 3 inches.
You've got the curve out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're increasing it up to the curb. So I doubt very much how much room do you need?
Quite a lot, because you have to have a concrete base, and you have to have sand,
Okay,
and you have to have... They're about this thick, the granite sets.
Yeah, but you're already getting gain 3 inches because you're going up to the curb. But okay.
So, just to caveat this, but once we have engineers doing drawings, we can confirm this use of material. So the other angle, Andrew, from this angle, that was the initial option that was discussed at the previous workshop for those who didn't attend it. And the feedback was, yes, we love the green here, and we want actually this to continue this side there, to hide, even though we know that there are plans to redevelop this area. In the meantime, we just want, because it's not going to happen overnight obviously, just want to make sure that this is brightened up a little bit, and even the frontage of the boiler room here. That was the feedback. And then to not have the sign here above the tower, but to have it on the canopy. And then this is the ramp, because we were a bit, well, we just removed totally the ramp in the visual, and this is still a little question mark that I'll come on to in a minute. I'll talk about the ramp in a second. So from there we moved on to this very simple touches. So you see the trellis continues and just covers the front of the boiler room here. Some evergreen growing up it, and some coloured planting in those skin planters there. Any question at this point?
Yes, thank you. If you go back to the previous picture, the same as you've done for the boiler room, is there any way of you doing it for the other utility room, the other end? Either putting a false door covering it?
Okay, got you now, yeah. You mean...
Where that black pet's
You mean
cut out?
here?
Yeah, where that door
That-
there.
That door.
Can you see it? I've put a trellis
Just
there.
down further down.
Oh, to continue
Down.
this trellis
Down.
here?
You see that blue door just to the left of your red mark?
There.
Yeah, there's a blue door that looks horrible utility room.
We need access to that.
Yeah,
You
I'm
need
not
access to it.
comfortable.
You've got a false door
Okay.
outside it, or a false trellis that could be opened, that could be moved by people who need access. Can you have a think about it, please?
Well, I've put a trellis here, but what we could do is have this panel. So
No, you
this
don't.
panel.
You
No,
don't
you
need-
can't see it. No, only just.
There's a blue door just.
Yeah,
I know.
below. Yeah,
Okay.
just below the trellis.
Emergency doors, yeah. All right, here, I don't know if you all can see, but there's a trellis here that we had on the other,
Yeah.
here. So it goes over the door, above the door, sorry.
No, I don't
What
want
we
above
could
the door,
do-
I want covering the door.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
what we could do is have it all the way down, and this being cut out so it's
Okay.
open.
That's what
And then you open this door.
Yes,
That would be easy. So instead of having it just at the top, it could go from there to there, all the way down there.
That's it, thank you.
Yeah?
That
So
can be
we've
considered.
taken that
in
note.
place.
That's what you meant, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
But this fact that canopy wasn't intended to sound like a grand idea. It was more a way of sort of saying that something multicoloured that kind of like contributes to the aesthetic
Yeah,
would be a nice choice.
We've had 4 groups in total, so there has been suggestion of Park Lane style canopy being a bit grand. So yes, there was. It was said in a joking way, but no, there was a wide range of views, but some of them did include something quite.
Just something
prominent.
pretty that kind of like has multi-coloured, like even if it's made of plastic.
Yeah, well, some suggestions were to try and be consistent with other canopies across the estate, or be consistent with the entrance of the library as well, for instance. So probably the use of glass or. Yeah.
So when will it be ready?
Sorry. I'll come to that in a
Oh, sorry.
second. That's fine. We haven't changed that. This is the proposed changes in terms of access. So still, this is what we're going to start and engage local occupiers like Piazzetta and the post office and etc. So yes, at the moment we put the bay here, but it could be that it's slightly further down, or from this angle, same treatment there, raised, etc. And provisionally, I said this is a very big question mark. Yes, if we can, we would like to bring back the shutter forward, and we now know that we can do that. Do we have the budget? That's the question mark, first of all. And second of all, with all the plans of redeveloping the inside, maybe there will be an opportunity to have a system that works for the owners of when the businesses get redeveloped and their access is redefined. We don't want to pay, £15,000 in a shutter that then will be discarded 5 years later, for instance. So we work jointly with housing and also with city surveyors, finding out more what their plans are, what's in the pipeline, and then if we can integrate it as part of this project, we will. Yeah? Okay, so that's the big elephant, the ramp. So, we talked to our structural engineer, and yes, we can take it all away, including this and all of it, but it costs a fortune. When I say a fortune, it will eat up a lot of the budgets. What we can easily take out is everything that I've highlighted in blue. So the curb and the walls around there. I mean, we always knew that we had to keep some headspace here for the vehicles to go down. But to even take just this bit there, so where the vehicle used to drive up, that cost a lot of money. That costs a lot of money to remove. So a decision has to be made from residents, really, and we will gather those views during the public consultation as to whether this is the key point in terms of achieving a successful design. Do we put all the money on this at the expense of more bespoke items like the canopy and the trellises, etc., or do we try and integrate? Hold on, Andrew.
Yes, I'm waiting for you to finish.
Or do we try and integrate this in the design? For example, you could have. So these are examples of roof gardens, and what I was thinking was if we make it somewhere that people can't walk, can't sit down, but still is in the theme of the greenery option.
That's a good idea, I like that.
So that's something we could integrate and try to make it quite attractive. Now, sorry, going back to that, you could also slope it that way, but what you're interested in is the visibility to the tower here. And what was blocking that was the wall, and the wall we know for sure can come down at a reasonable cost.
Well,
Yes, Andrew.
sorry. Personally, I'm not too fussed about the view to the tower block if you've got a lit canopy, because you'll be able to see it from most angles. If you want to save money, you only need to take down the right-hand side, because the left-hand side you can't see past from the hotel anyway. But whatever remains, as long as you cover it, I don't want to see the concrete.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You know, removing it all is not what I asked
But
for.
what we were really trying to achieve was to have as much flat surface as possible to give us this feeling of openness, you know. So that's what we instructed the structural engineer to look into. Yes.
If it were covered and you grew plants, I put a plant in front and had trailing plants running up,
Yeah.
that would tend to hide the ugliness.
Yeah, I perfectly agree.
As
I
long
don't
as
want to see it,
people
but you
can't
take it away.
skateboard down it,
That's
that's
No,
fine.
well, that's it. So another idea that we have that we're still working on is to have this, as I said, as a little roof garden or rain garden, but instead of having walls, we could have glass. So it gives a more open feeling than still having concrete walls. And it also stops
If you want to change the glass, the right-hand side is all needed. I don't want to see the concrete, whatever's left there.
Yeah, I think that's...
But the point is, it doesn't have to just be roof garden. We asked for extra cycle parking at the bottom. We asked for all sorts of other things that we can consider.
Adding extra cycle parking is in the scope of the project as well, but it doesn't have to be here. We are thinking carefully of where it could go, and actually this may be the right place, this may not be the right place. We'll think about that when we do the transport, which we've started actually, the transport assessment. So at public consultation, that will be a key question for residents to answer, because it's either we put all the money in removing most of the ramp or in redesigning it in line with the rest of the feel of the space. Yeah?
So you will have costs for that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yes, well, I already know roughly that to remove this, where the vehicles used to, is at least £100,000. So it could be minimum 100,000, it could be
How much budget
150,000.
have you got?
I can get a lot of more. I can get. We can cover that cost. That's the point. You mean the total project
Yeah,
cost?
I mean, if you're saying that that's going to cost 100,000, but we've only got 110, there's only 10 left. That's a different issue than saying we've got 200.
No,
and it'll leave 100,000. We can do it for that.
We've got an estimated cost at the moment between. So it's a cost range. We don't have a confirmed budget yet, because we'll get that when we know exactly what we're doing, right? So at the moment it sits between 450,000 to 650,000. That's the budget.
Can I suggest that you don't have glass, because glass gets dirty. I mean, we have a glass entrance on Harrow Place that never gets cleaned. It is filthy dirty and it's disgusting.
Okay.
I personally, I go for the same sort of trellis you've got in the rest of the garden on the right.
Yeah, that's another suggestion. Yeah, that's quite a good idea. Yeah. But anyway, what I mean is that will be a key question during the consultation. Yeah. Removing just these walls is very cheap and easily feasible. Okay, so
get a sledgehammer and do it for you.
And people who've got cars on the ground will have problems, and everything will collapse on their lovely cars. It's statewide consultation, so we plan this for the end of November, latest first week of December. Then we gather all the feedback and we finalise the design, and then we'll probably put that on the notices and the notice boards to say, here you go, that's the final design. And usually what we also do is we capture, if during the public consultation some of you say, I really wanted this to happen, but in the final design it's not integrated, we have a document that captures all that and explains why we're taking it on board, why we can't take it on board, and all this is documented. Yeah? And so when is this happening? Still February, March, hope to start on something in February.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
In view of the fact we've had 2 separate consultations with the residents,
yes.
to put a notice round and asking for opinions. If the opinions, if the people didn't come to attend the...
Oh, absolutely. No, this is not a consultation to say, what do you want for the space? It's a consultation to say, this is the final thought.
We have got ideas.
Yeah.
We've got ideas. We would like you to confirm or not change your mind.
Yeah.
But
it'll be most on variations.
But the people who attended the two working parties are the people who are interested in the estate. The rest of the estate couldn't care less. Otherwise, they would have been down at the at the work.
Yes, we won't redesign the project following the public consultation that we had.
That's it.
We already, get to a stage. We don't want to go backwards, so we will take
You're
care
just
of
saying,
that are reasonable.
this is how it's all worked out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Public consultation is for anything missed in mistakes.
Yeah, and the public consultation as well is to give a final opportunity to people to have a say. If they say clearly, I hate it, well, we'll just make a note of it. We're not going to change it.
If one person says it doesn't work.
But then if we've got, 80% of the people of the estate saying we hate this, well, obviously we'll have to take notice of that. But hopefully it won't happen.
So, can I ask you a question? You got committee approval January. Is that the streets and walkways, or is it going to the full planning committee?
It goes to, on this one, it goes to streets and walkways, and it goes to DCTS, but for information, not for decision.
All right, streets and walkways in January, yeah?
Yeah.
As you can see, it's a very tight program. So this is why, following the public consultation, we want to progress and to move on to the construction of the project. So we won't redesign all of it. We won't look backward and have to do all what we've been doing. So really the idea is to get the project moving forward and to follow our program.
Yeah. I mean, to give you an example, it would be about, we like this kind of planters, yes, but could you try and achieve this and maybe tweak this? Or for example, mosaics, it'll be, most people say, no, don't put mosaics, just keep the green. And then two people say we like mosaics, but then that's not the majority. It'll be mostly on the details where we might tweak a few things, but not the general idea. Yes.
I assume it's going to be odd bits and pieces. There's a whole load of little things like access to the pavement is going to come along later, and we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty tonight. But there's a lot more going to be in the reports, isn't there, in the public consultation?
In terms of, in the public consultation, we'll have examples of materials, mock-up of what kind of trellises we want to put on there.
It could be more explicit than you.
Yeah, you'll have a lot of exemplars, like I did at the workshop, a lot of these little examples, but
So
instead of having loads of
request we move on, because you've only got half an hour
Yeah.
left, and we've got two major items to talk about.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Leila, Clara, thank you very much. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So I'm actually going to move straight to Amy's item, so that Amy can run through the project updates. Leila, Clara, if you need to go, that's absolutely fine. You're welcome to stay. So this will be Amy's last meeting. No, not Barafra. She is staying with us, but working in a different role. So she's very kindly come tonight to run through the update.
Thanks everyone. It's quite exciting to be on before 9 o'clock. As usual, for those of you who don't normally know the format, I think the idea is we usually run through the list from top to bottom. So I'll give you a verbal update. If you've got any questions on that one, that's probably the best time to chip in for those, if that's all right. So first up, we've got the balcony doors and windows in Postcode Tower. A big thank you from me for everyone who came to the open meeting on the 10th of August. I appreciate it wasn't the ideal time in the middle of summer, but thank you ever so much. And then we had a month-long consultation following that for every resident in the tower to give their views in writing. There were 4 options for the windows, and the one that was selected was to remain with the existing layout. But as outlined in the letter that came to all residents in the tower, we're going to get costs for both double and triple glazing, and then check with residents which one they'd absolutely like us to go for, because there were basically half and half. Some people wanting double, some wanting triple. So that is that one. Anyone got any questions on that before we move on?
Big question on that for me is, obviously Windows has been going on since 2003, 2004.
before my time.
Yeah, absolutely. And throughout that period, we've been told that obviously windows will be updated for decent homes and to...
Sorry, wouldn't be or would be?
They would be updated. It's spoken to double glazing, and then of course it went from double glazing to triple glazing, etc., etc. But within all that period of time, obviously the boundary windows got removed from the project to be done as part of the sustainability project, and we were always told that that would be done when the other items in sustainability, the cladding and the insulation, so it will be done at the same time. And there was two things really. One is that we were always told you would have all your windows done. So I feel that within the tower, there's 13 properties who have windows that aren't of the original layout. And by not allowing them to have their windows replaced, I think you're cutting out a huge number of, 16% of the residents there, who at some point or other have changed their windows. And quite possibly because we were told back in 2003, 4, and then when we got the letter from Minerva, that this 106 money was being provided so that your windows would be replaced prior to demolition and construction of the blue building opposite. Obviously that didn't happen, and in fact we're waiting, I'd say 11 years after we originally talked about windows, to have these balcony windows done. So my main point is I think that you should reconsider giving the option to people who want to have their windows changed, who already have that they've already changed their balcony in some form or other. And most of the people have done, they've just enclosed the balcony space. To allow them to have that, because as I say, at no time in the last 12 years have we been told, actually we're going to replace the balcony windows later, but we're not going to do yours. That just seems grossly unfair for the corporation to now turn around and say that. So that's the main point.
Okay, I'll have to take that back. That's not something I can answer right now. So
We're not going to comment on that.
No, I don't expect to, but I just want to bring that point up in a meeting
yeah.
on camera, because
Absolutely.
Henry would have been at a lot of these meetings. We weren't told that we weren't going to have all of our windows.
Okay. We understand your point. We know you're not happy about that.
Yeah.
We're not going to comment on that. Amy's here to give an update.
No,
what is
exactly,
happening
but
in
that's
terms-
all part of the thing, because she's talking about just doing one design.
Absolutely.
was that the only point?
That's the main point.
Okay. Moving on to next is the redecoration work, which I know is a hot topic for a few of you. Again, that was considered at the meeting on the 10th of August, and then we had a consultation. Unfortunately, a really low rate of return in terms of the optional work, so we can't consider that a mandate to take any of that forward. It was very, very few people who were interested in that, so we're going for completely statutory required works at this point, which is redecorating any surfaces which are already decorated is the best way to think about it.
Some people found your letter difficult to understand. I helped one or two people by sitting and reading it out to them, and I said to them, does it help that I've read it out? And they said no.
Okay. Well, I'm ever so sorry about that.
I had 3 people last night.
Okay. Any particular points so we can improve that for future?
The whole thing was just confusing. One of them was an accountant who asked,
Right.
because it was just diabolical, and I had to read it for a day and a half before I understood it.
I'm sorry about that.
One lady said to me, what's it actually asking me? And I said, actually,
So I've got
For any
I'm not
future
surprised you
consultations,
didn't get
please
any
do
replies.
send them to us. That's partly why we had a month-long period so that we could deal with any questions. I'm always happy to take any phone calls. So please do encourage people to contact me if you've got any questions. I had a few by email, but not a lot of contact. Lovely. So just to update you, that will be now going through a formal specification process. So we had an outline study done in terms of what it might cost. Now there'll be a formal specification of the surfaces, the paints required, and that then goes into the tender. So that's going to be the next couple of months. Basically admin, you won't see much going on, but we'll update you when we're near the time to get on the site for that one. The next one is about the front doors in Petticoat Tower, which I think some of you might already be aware are due to now be replaced. So initially we were looking at just redecorating them. They're now going to be replaced. Possibly it'll link up with one of those other projects in terms of how it's advertised, and we might have the same contractor doing it, but we'll update you when that comes nearer the time.
It's probably not the appropriate time to ask, but we were told we were going to have the podium entrance to the tower block, a powered disabled access door, a long time ago.
Okay.
And I'm wondering what's happened to that.
That's with me, actually. That was a query that brought this morning by Billy. He asked me about it, and I said I'll chase it up and let him know. So I'll
It's
put that
been
on
rather
the
long
update.
time.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. I'll let you know as well.
Any other questions on that?
In the cyclical work,
Oh, we're just getting.
Got-
Oh, sorry.
you've got external and internal repairs. What external repairs would there be? And redecorating?
External repairs will be anything that needs repairing before the decorating can be done. So things like if a door closer needs replacing before the door's painted. It's that sort of thing. So they're kind of bundled up together. Lovely. The next project is the concrete testing and repairs. I'm really pleased to say that the second tender we did, we had enough bids to proceed, because the last one, I think you'll remember, we only had the one, which is a bit frustrating, and currently being financially assessed, and then we'll be able to get that finalised as to which contractor we're appointing. The good news is it's a much lower bid than we were expecting, which is why we're having to have it financially assessed, just to make sure that that bid is associated with a good enough quality to go forward. But we're really pleased with that. It's been a really strong, competitive tender, which is great. So within the next month or so, we'll have the Section 20 letters out to leaseholders, and we'll update all residents about when they'll be on site and when they can get cracking.
Can I ask you about that particular project?
Sure.
Does it cover the state of the podium at all?
What aspects of the podium, just so I can be clear?
Well, any aspect. Is any aspect of repairs, concrete testing repairs, does that apply to the podium, either the surface of the podium or the underside of the podium?
In terms of the testing repairs, yes.
Sorry?
Both, yes. But
Okay.
in terms of the project, in terms of how it will be built, which I know we've discussed before, it won't be built to leaseholders. It's not part of the lease. So we're very clear on that. We've had a similar situation at Golden Lane and Barbican as well, where the costs are billed very, very structured in terms of where they apply to. So the test locations in particular are very precise. So we can always immediately identify where that's been done. So I can give you some reassurance on that.
Thank you.
The next couple of projects are my colleague Lachlan's, so forgive me if I don't know as much about them. But they're all in a pretty similar situation. So they've been wiring, the surveys have already been done. We're just awaiting the final report to confirm the extent of wiring work that we'll be doing. As we've previously discussed here, that's mainly in the kind of communal areas going into tenant flats. And then it will go through an options appraisal process in terms of going to committee and getting formal approval for the work to go forward. Any questions on your wiring?
Yes, I still have an old-fashioned fuse box.
Okay.
Right? Nobody came in to me to survey any of my wiring.
Remind me, you were tenant?
23D. And I did put my name down.
Okay. I'll double check that with Lachlan in terms of whether that's outstanding. It may not be that they were going to all flats, so quite often they'll do a sample, and if they're happy they've got a good enough picture of the situation.
Yeah, but do they know how many flats have new, the automatic?
Yes, because the council gets informed of that when they change.
We'll have a record of what we've done before.
Right.
But as I say, I think they would be doing a sample of what they don't know. And then they tend to do a bit of a percentage calculation of what other ones might need to. But rest assured, we'll get to you.
So could you just clarify for me the tenants rewire, what that means as a leaseholder to me?
In terms of tenants rewire, it'll be inside a tenanted flat if a rewiring needs doing. A lot of them are done already, they were done at the time of decent homes.
Fuse box onwards.
Just any that were missing.
Fuse box onwards.
But in terms of
That's what tenants' responsibility, fuse box onwards. Into fuse boxes there.
Okay, sorry, so lighting switches and things like that are not, is my responsibility, not covered by what you're talking about here.
If you're a leaseholder, no. Once it's within your flat, that becomes your responsibility.
Fine, okay, thank you.
And the next project on the list is heating, which I know is again quite a hot topic. They've done they've done the surveys, and again we're waiting for the final report, which, as you know, will be the options, which we will then consult on residents with what the options might be for the future of the project.
And the same with that one. So up until the front, the entrance into the flat for leaseholders, or
In terms of the heating?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the options are even possible at this stage, so I can't comment on what that might or might not mean for leaseholders. I've not been involved in the project in terms of what's going on and the report will come in.
No, it's a district heaters, but I'm just wondering, does that mean that that covers all the radiators and pipes
I can find
for
out,
leaseholders, or
but I
whether
don't
you
know.
think that it's up till the service shoot?
It's a slight aside question, but it's about heating. my radiators have never been hot yet this winter. Is that just because it's been a mild winter and the boilers on top very much?
Most likely, yes, they're pretty
They're not
good.
hot. It's been
It's
unbelievably
been
mild.
down
isn't it?
from the previous temperature to 13 last couple of years.
I'll check that for you, Julie. And the next project is linked to heating, as we discussed before, so it's ventilation. Again, we're waiting on the report for the options, and that will come to you directly. And the final one is lift refurbishment, which, as you know from previous meetings, we are just keeping an eye on the situation. The project's not due for over a year yet, so we'll keep an eye on it. If it needs to be brought forward, it will, but at the moment we're looking at 17, 18.
Are they working better recently, Paul, or were they?
Is that part of your update, Paul?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, definitely. I believe they have been.
What do we actually mean by lift refurbishment?
It's effectively, we call it a refurbishment because there's a lift already there, but it usually is a pretty much complete overhaul because they're usually over 30 years old. So the winding equipment in the top gets replaced for a modern version. It will be a new lift car. A lot of people think the lift car is just a metal box, but in terms of how the equipment talks to each other, and the buttons and things like that. So it's a new lift car, new winding gear at the top, new ropes, everything else, some guidings in the back. Don't usually replace the architraves in the communal areas unless there's severe damage to them, but they remain in place. The doors behind are replaced, but they don't usually change much in appearance from the outside.
And is there an option to continue to maintain the existing equipment?
In terms of these lifts here, they've already been assessed as part of our general condition survey as needing replacing in the years we've put them in the programme. So we have a 30-year programme and that gets informed by our lift consultants.
Why do they need replacing?
They've already been subject to a condition survey which has said the equipment needs modernising. So as I say, with the winding gear, that's a particular concern. When that fails, that fails. And in terms of modern safety equipment, it's quite often the things that are fail-safes to prevent them falling. So it's usually in terms of modernisation rather than because they're completely kaput. Part of our duty is to maintain things before they fail.
Can we have access to the report about our lifts?
Sorry,
can we have access to the report about our lifts?
I'm sure it's fine. Let me request that for you.
So because the previous engineer, lift engineer you had here before, has pretty much said that there's nothing to go wrong with lifts.
Right.
So it would be useful to see the report to see if there's actually fatigue in the bits you were talking about, the ropes.
Just to offer some reassurance. I'm not saying they're dangerous, but what I'm saying is it's modern safety equipment.
No, but you're also saying there's a 30-year...
Usually, yes.
You don't replace things for the sake of it, and absolutely, you're very, very sure.
Question. Lift access to the third floor. Don't you find it a bit ridiculous that there isn't any?
Not something I know much about.
Third floor? That's a third floor. First floor.
The new flats.
The new flats you can't access.
You have to either go to 4 and go down.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, but they just didn't take the option to create a new lift hole.
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
To avoid when the new flats in the tower.
In the tower?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you build
you've got
great
the podium level, fourth level, but nothing on the third where new flats are, like I said.
You know, you built great disabled future-proof flats and then didn't give them lifts.
But you've got to use the stairs to get there.
Yeah, weird.
So all it needs is knocking out. That's something I wasn't aware of, but I'll certainly flag it for the project when it comes up, because it would make sense.
That's right.
Okay. Any other questions for Amy? Well, can I thank Amy for her fortitude and good humour in coming to these meetings time and time again, and I'm sure you'll see her again at some point because she is carrying on working with us. And you will remember Karen Tarbox, who left us in August. We have an interim replacement for her, but by the next meeting in February, we will have her permanent replacement in post. He starts in January, and so hopefully we will certainly get these dates in his diary, so hopefully he'll be into the next one.
Karen was very involved in self-reporting. What's been happening with that? It hasn't reappeared, self-reporting systems called Purple or something.
SSP?
Oh, self-service
portal.
portal.
Yeah.
Self-service portal is now live.
Oh.
So,
I didn't know.
there is, if
Something else
it
on
hasn't gone out, it's going out.
It's
It's literally just gone out.
happened, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just gone live. So if you haven't had publicity about it, you will. And we're very much encouraging people to register for it. And where we've had tenants check it, they've been delighted with it. So you can check your rent, you can report repairs, you can do a number of things on it. So So yeah, if the publicity, it is literally though, it's only just gone live. So, and you know, we need a bit of time. We've had a bit of time to test it ourselves.
Like the seating and recycling, I'm a little bit late.
So we will send it.
The lock on the lock that's not there at the moment on the tower door, do you make sure that you chase them up?
Yes,
Because that is very important. There are 84 flats there that are now at risk.
That's one of the
Yeah.
next.
We've given
Tomorrow.
tomorrow. They just required a part, so we're just waiting
Sorry,
on it.
We'll make sure they do it tomorrow.
Replacement like for like is a problem because that's a residential, not residential, that's not an industrial strength lock this side. And anytime anybody wants to break it, the internal going out, they can. And I'm not sure that like for like replacement is a sensible thing to do because that's not the first time it's been broken.
Okay, well, as they're due to replace it tomorrow, we'll let them replace it. If it goes again, then we'll carry out an improvement and we'll get a more industrial one for them.
I think
Have
it's
you found
sensible.
out who vandalised it?
No, we can't really see those
What
things.
might be sensible, Paul, is to get a quote, find out what would be involved in putting a stronger lock on, so that
With the same
it's all
barrels,
lined
so we've
up.
got the same
Yes,
keys,
so it's, yes.
Yeah. We'll write that down.
Going back to the lifts, is lift 2 number 2 okay now? Because we had like about a
No
month
idea.
where lift number 2 sort of like broke, then it was mended,
Oh,
and then
really?
it broke
But
again.
Paul is about to...
Oh, sorry,
That's
I'm-
all right. That's all right. Come on, that's all right. We now come to Paul's update and this is a couple of lifts.
Okay, I've asked Bob West for an update on this. He couldn't attend tonight, unfortunately. So I'll go over the points I believe I can make mildly interesting with regard to this. Okay, he's compiled information over the past 3 months, so since the 1st of August 2015. The good news, the 2 lifts in Pentecote Tower, lift CL123, just the left-hand lift I would imagine, it's broken down on 1 occasion only, which is an improvement. And the other lift is also broken down on 1 single occasion during the same period, which is for a broken key switch within the lift car. So the amount of times they used to go out in the tower, 2 breakdowns, 1 each in 3 months, I think is pretty good. Still not perfect, not what we want, but it's improved.
Yeah.
Yep. Now the 4 lifts in Pentecote Square have fared slightly less well, apart from 1 lift which has not been reported broken down during the whole period. Lift number CL122, got no idea what one that is I'm afraid, but most likely it's this one here, which was a little swine, was a series of failures during September which were due to a resistor burning out within the main lift control, which you can't really factor for. So they replaced the resistor, then the lift suffered 2 more failures in quick succession, which were caused by electrical relay failures, and the relay failures were as a result of the earlier failure to the resistor. So they didn't know it was going to happen, but it was a knock-on effect that was happening, which is a bit of a pain in the backside, because I know we're working really hard to get things fixed and chasing it every single day. Eventually it was fixed.
Another name for a resistor is fuse.
Is it fuse? Didn't know that. So it's first recorded on the 7th of September and finally resolved on the 18th. So not too long, 11 days, but it seemed like an age whilst it was within it. CL120, no idea what that is. Suffered a continued shutdown during September. Do you know what lift that would be? Number 2 lift, I think. So I'll be in the corner on the far side because that was playing up the door, wasn't it? That was due to lift car door and top hanging track section being damaged. Not sure how it got damaged, but it got damaged. The cost of the works exceeded the set limit that they can just carry out the works for, so it required a quotation, got done, and then kind of got repaired. What you'll be pleased to hear is that Bob has agreed 2 lifts within Pentecote Square, CL120 and CL122, to have 2 new lift car floorings fitted, and the orders with guidelines to be completed as and when it's within a timescale, so you get new flooring there as well. I believe the flooring in lift number 4, they know mainly attention in the future, so they're keeping an eye on that. That's the reason why one of those went out, because one of the, not the floor itself, it wasn't dangerous to anybody, but the lower part of the floor come loose a little bit and had to go underneath and screw it back on, make sure it's all well, good thing. Is it okay? Do you think the lifts have improved somewhat?
Yes.
Yeah? Really? That's good.
Yeah.
I expected another.
There's still a problem with some of the internal lights not being repaired.
Yeah.
And all the external lift call indicators not being done.
They are aware of them, and
I've been working on them a bit at a time.
yeah, they're not doing them as a bulk, let's fix it, but when they come down, they're fixing a few as they go along.
Yeah.
They said for a week they'll be doing this as
Oh,
part
okay,
of
then they've got a
weekly
plan.
maintenance.
Okay.
And that most likely, I don't know, but I would imagine it comes down to a budget thing. If it's under budget, they can fix them. If they do all at once or go above the budget, that we can allocate. So they need to go out to
That's a
more
That's
permissions.
a reasonable explanation. Thank you.
I propose something else. When the telephone system went down the other day, when the cable was cut in Wentworth Street, I know of one lady who's got an alarm system. She told me that had taken out her alarm system.
Okay.
If that happens again, will somebody from the estate office go around to the people on the estate who've got the alarm system?
We could certainly find that out and
Because
get
I
around to
think
it.
this person was concerned because it took out the alarm system, and she thought that if she needed to use the alarm system, it wouldn't work. The telephone system.
You're talking about care alarms?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a sort of a form of reassurance
That
that if
goes
the care
through to-
alarms go down again. Yeah.
The police.
Kensington.
No, it's fine. I remember, but we
Yeah.
have arranged.
Yeah, so we'll arrange that out with them. Because they'll have a list of who's got them on the estate.
Actually, related to that, while the BT lines were out for a few days in the tower, then quite often in one of the lifts, I think you get some sort of recorded announcement.
Yeah, the alarm
Yeah.
Yes.
So my question is, if something happened and somebody got stuck in the lift during that period, they wouldn't be able to call. What would happen? They wouldn't be able to call anybody because
No.
the line was down. But if you press the alarm
The
button,
alarm
it would still
button
be
still rings,
all
so
of
you
them.
hold your finger on it and until someone can hear it, because it is a loud alarm. So if you held your finger on it,
Where does it sound?
where does it sound? It sounds from the,
Sorry?
in the lift. I think it's on the ground floor and in the lift itself, so
Right.
people can hear it. And if people do hear it, we do say call the fire brigade, because it is very rare that them things do go down. I mean, that's the first time that's actually
Yeah,
gone down
no,
Yeah.
just
on
I
those
was
areas.
going
You
down
have to press, and it's an audio alarm, so hopefully you get someone to
Okay,
hear.
so it doesn't make, it won't be able to make the call out,
No.
but the alarm will sound.
Yeah.
Fine.
And you can't deactivate that noise, I think Billy was saying.
No, it's there. It's there
all the time.
for them to cover
Just
themselves.
linked in with it.
Yeah.
Slightly annoying for the C flats, going back onto the lift. But there you go.
It's the fail safe, so yeah.
I'm determined that this is the first meeting that ends.
Door key.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
spare door key.
You want to spare door keys?
Why would they return to us?
Oh, because...
They've set the alarm downstairs.
Nobody moves. Nobody from us all.
Happy innocent fire alarm. Yeah, why not?
10 minutes early.
That's the way to finish on time. I'll answer Manny's question.
The
Okay,
yoga
Manny.
must have finished and they've done the
Just so
alarm
rest
as
of-
they've gone out.
Just so the rest of you read, Manny asked, we're keeping certain keys for residents in the estate office, and we return all the keys to residents, even vulnerable residents. Now, the reason being because we can't be on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and if people need the keys, we're not always available. What we do though, we liaise with our social services team and occupational therapy, and if there's a vulnerable resident who needs a key safe, we'll install it for them. So have a key safe outside the door, which is perfectly secure as far as I'm aware, with a spare set of keys in. So if they lose them or someone needs to access it, there's a particular code they have, they can then punch it in and access the keys. So there's a way around that. Just that we just...
I've
we
seen
can't allocate
reviews
keys.
around this stuff.
There's quite a few around.
Yeah, how do you get these keys?
Manny, I've actually inquired.
Yeah, I haven't heard.
Okay, I'll chase that up, but I've actually inquired about your key safe, so I'll look into that. Okay.
Right, Paul, the rest of your report. That's it.
Oh no, that's not it. Manager's
Oh,
update.
just go back to the lifts, sorry.
Yeah.
Can you just, obviously the lifts in the town, we use quite a lot more than the other lifts, I guess.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Can you just make sure that the actual floors are scrubbed in there rather than just a quick wash over?
You've tried to pass that.
Yeah,
Well, generally it's fairly good, but it kind of just builds up grime over a period of time. Yeah, the scrubbing brush on it.
I'll let Joey know because he'll be straight on to that.
Yeah, he'll probably find them showing.
Corners, tell him about corners. Corners.
You almost put a knife along and just pull off all the dirt.
Also, the buttons, the lift buttons,
Yep.
the call buttons, they're not all lighting up.
Oh no, that's,
Yeah, we covered that.
that's going to be done as we go along
Yeah.
every single week, so they will be getting on.
Is the lift on on the edge into the lift at the end of this slope?
No, I noticed that, not last week, that's a lie, because I was in America. I noticed it the week before.
Because when I
And I'm
took
going
Liz
to chase that
up
up
in
again. It's still
her
got a
chair,
lift on it, hasn't it?
she said to me, Rob Oakley, I think his name's Rob
Yes.
Oakley, hasn't actually levelled it out for her, and
On-
he promised us he would.
I don't think it's Rob's responsibility to do, but he can request it and then it's us to do. But I'll chase that down, because I noticed it 2 weeks ago it wasn't done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll chase that.
But I understand the problem you've got with those tall lights on the square.
Yeah.
And I understand it's part of the handover for the public and not. Could you tell me the situation with the lights around the square on podium level? Because a lot of them have been working, some of them for 2 years. A lot of the residents are complaining that since you built flats on the podium, they're getting light into their flats. And how difficult would it be just to put a bit of silver foil at the bottom of any light that's causing nuisance in somebody's bedroom? It's 5 minutes effort.
We could look to do that. I don't know exactly what material we'd use.
Well,
we could look to do it. But as far as I've been out
try
for...
one, a bit of resident of number Elgin, and get a bit of Baco foil and stick it on the bottom of a light and see what happens.
Complaints will happen.
No, the one who I know wants it.
Let us know, don't tell us here, but
No, that's
email
right,
me the
that's what I'm
number,
not saying.
and we'll have a look at doing it, to see if we can assist them. But the lights that have been out for a while...
I think, are you referring to the street light?
No, the yellow one that's just on the podium, as you're walking along the podium, football area. There's one light, the second one hasn't worked properly for 2 years, finally gave up the ghost.
Right, okay, well, I'll talk to you after about
Okay.
the exact position.
Okay.
and we can
Can I
trace
just ask when the office is closed over Christmas for people who might want to know?
It's closed on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve because the library itself is closed. But we'll still be around, we'll be on site, telephones, emails, and we'll be walking around, seeing if anyone needs us to talk. Unless it's very cold, then we're not going to go out.
Yeah, Christmas Day is known.
Yeah, so if you see us, we will accept sherry and
that
chocolates.
you were off, you're closed for the bank holidays.
Yes, well, yeah.
You didn't
that's what
mention
it is.
that.
Yeah, definitely bank holidays.
You're not closed the whole week.
But normal working days will be open apart from Christmas Eve and New Year. But we're going to get information out on notice flyers, newsletters, and everything will be informed to you as per normal.
So the rest of your update?
The only other update I've got is hopefully a very quick one because I don't have more information than I'm going to tell you. So feel free to ask any questions. I can say I don't know. The possible, proposed, probable gym on the estate. Thank you for all of your views. That was very, very interesting. We were due to be having meetings with some selected residents who was yeses and nos to get a fuller figure of that about 3 weeks ago. Unfortunately, not all the residents could make, and leaseholders, could make the meeting at the time we wanted. So I need to create a new meeting, which I'll wait till my holiday and I come back to create that. Once we have that, we'll send a questionnaire out to all residents and see and garner further views and options from them. It's by no means a done deal. It's by no means yes or no. Like I say, we don't particularly have a preference on this. It's what the residents and leaseholders would like to have. So that's as much information I have on the gym at the moment in time.
And with the voting on that, the person who's on the tenancy or on the lease only?
One good question.
Because I think you're aware, we felt that there was quite a lot of children who put their names down to that, which is fine, get some sort of overall balance of what's going on. But ultimately, I think the decisions lies.
We need to think about that because young people, you've talked about in the past about young people not having anything to do and they don't really have a voice, do they? And so what we're trying to do is listen to them as well, but you're right, that, how we weigh that up is...
Should it be one vote per property or one vote per resident?
We'll
Because it's for residential use. I know.
I think certainly when you report back, you should separate the young people from one leaseholder or the tenant, named tenant, so that we can actually see what the breakdown is. Because I agree, children need, young people and children need to have things to do.
Yes.
But at the same time, they don't have the experience of life that some of us have.
Well, I think
and wisdom.
Jack, could I just make a comment regarding the gym? The last month, the provider has come and seen me about putting the gym in Beaufort House. Now that gym in Beaufort House will obviously, if we think about it, it's going to have a big impact, and it's going to be quite a cheap provider, for want of a better word. So I think it's something we do need to look at, and their application is going to go in early next year, and being a private enterprise, they're going to actually get their gym up and running a lot quicker than what we will.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just, I think it's worth
Yeah,
mentioning
that's
because it's,
Yeah.
whether the residents vote for it, and you've got another one on your doorstep.
Yeah. Yeah, what we're talking about is a couple of pieces of outdoor gym equipment.
Oh, on the podium, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking
So
about
no,
extras.
no, we don't know what's going to happen
Yeah.
there, as you know, Henry. But yeah, this is about having a couple of pieces of equipment.
Yeah, just
And one option might be to try it for a period of time and see if the fears that some residents have are realised, or whether actually it is okay.
Yeah,
So we don't know yet. We take your point. We do think it's important to listen to young people as well. They might not be on the actual tenancy, but they do live here, and they should have some kind of voice. But we need to weigh that up against the people who are on the tenancy.
And I think in terms of transparency, when you publish the results of the survey, they should be separated into separate groups.
Hello. When you were speaking, it was about the guards as well that come round on the weekend. How's that working out?
that's going well.
You missed that bit, Marianne.
Can't put anything past me.
The general part is going very well. They're engaging very well with residents and other people that see around the estate. They're moving people on who shouldn't be here, and not only telling them to leave off, but they're actually saying this assistance is here if you need to get it, or have you been residents homeless, do you know where to go? And they're advising with the police on issues. And
Because
everything
if we don't ever see them, I've never seen them because I'm not out at that time of night, but I just wanted to know.
Yeah, no, they've done very well. They've, in the last 3 months, they've been down 78 times, and they've lodged with the public court 3 times, and 14 times with other members of the public court residents. They're doing very well.
Okay.
I just wanted to say about planning. You mentioned planning earlier. We do get information about tables and chairs outside. So if you want us, we can, when we do get them sorted, we can pass that on to housing. And then I don't know, maybe you can put it on Facebook that this is coming out. So you get notification
I'm
about
planning to ask all the residents, but when they don't do something to City London, they don't reply to your email, get the packet. So they have to reply to my email.
Okay. Right. Thank you all very much. Nice to see you.